Welcome to the Financial Sector Deepening Uganda podcast, a podcast where we explore the complexities around financial inclusion in Uganda. Financial Sector Deepening Uganda is a not-for-profit organization with a mandate to promote financial inclusion to the underserved and those that are excluded from the general financial system in Uganda. Our mandate really is to ensure that the underserved, or what people refer to as the last mile individual, has access to finance and is able to utilize or take advantage with everything that comes with financial inclusion. So today we are going to explore a very unique and interesting topic. Have you ever used a USSD code? Do you know what a USSD code is? Do you know that every time you send mobile money to someone or you pay for your utilities, you actually use a USSD code? So when you dial that star, blah, 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 hash, that is what we refer to as the USSD code. Now, because we learn every day, I recently found out that USSD code actually stands for Unstructured Supplementary Service Data. Did you know that? Yes. So today we are going to be talking about USSD code. It has been used, by so many organizations in partnership with telecos to promote access to finance or to promote and ease in the process of, financial services being offered, whether you're paying school fees, utilities, sending money, receiving money, you always have to use a USSD code. However, has it reached its limit? Are we at a point where we need as a country to explore an alternative to the USSD code? That is going to be the core of our discussion today. Brenda Amonyiki is my name, and I will be the host of the podcast today. Allow me to introduce my amazing panel, people who I believe are experts in the matter that we are going to discuss today. So I'll introduce Andrew Kasuja, who is the Intervention Manager with Financial Sector Deepening Uganda. And I'll also introduce Alex Wekoye, who is the Chief Commercial Officer with MTN Momo. So these are the experts that are going to share with us today on how we use USSD, to achieve our mandate on financial inclusion, the relevance, how it has helped the market, and we'll also hear from them on how or if they think that it's time for the industry to move on to alternative methods that we can use, beyond USSD. So imagine a scenario where you live in a town and, you're the star of the town. You are doing so well. Everything is going on well for you. You are achieving everything that you need to achieve. But deep down, you have a fire. And there's something that you need to do beyond the town, despite everything that is, working for you in this town. And then you finally get that opportunity. But remember, in the town where you are literally the star. So what do? Do you leave your starship, right, in this town and move forward to new opportunities, to a land that you do not know? Do you go and explore if actually the grass is greener on the other side? Well, I feel that is where we have reached as an industry with USSD. We know that the code works. It's what literally we all use. But it has its limitations, which we'll explore with this podcast. And we know for sure that with those limitations, there may be an opportunity for us to go into the next alternative method. But do we know what it is? Is it actually one that will help us achieve our mandate, to continue and promote financial inclusion in the country? Is that where we have reached? Well, if that is a question that you've had in mind, then you've come to the right podcast. So, gentlemen, let us unpack the mystery around USSD code and hear your thoughts on whether it is still relevant on the market today. So I'll start with you, Alex, because, coming from the telecom side, what is USSD? If you're to explain it to a layperson out there, because when I tried unstructured supplementary service data, it seemed a bit of a mouthful, but in plain language, literally, how would you explain what USSD code is?
Okay. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank everyone who is watching in this podcast. USSD code is simply a code. What the customer out there and the audience typically know as a code. If you go to any market, any common place, someone will ask you, what's the code? Which code do I use?
Yeah.
So in the marketplace, it's basically a code. Yeah. Technically and operation, that's when we come to say, unstructured supplementary services data, USSD code. And it derives its name from the evolution of real GSM. Yeah, but specifically to your question, USSD code means simply a code. The code that you use, that customers use, that everyone uses to partake of the various services that we do have.
Yeah.
I would say it's a channel because, first of all, consumers partake of either bank tech services and product, or fintech or mobile products and services through certain channels to be able to use them. It could be buying airtime, it could be depositing money or withdrawing money, it could be sending money to a loved one. Yeah. So those mechanisms through which you send money become channels. Yeah. And USSD is one of the most popular channels in this side of the world. There are other channels definitely, but it's very prominent, statistically contributing about 65% of the traffic in the overall landscape of channels. Yeah. We can as well speak about other channels that include web-based channels or digital channels, as we specifically call them. Yeah. But I would say USSD or the code approach, where you simply dial a specific code to bring for you or to fetch for you data or send for you data, as the most popular channel.
Okay. Yeah. And you had briefly touched on it, but maybe just to get more clarity, what has been the evolution? At what point did we as a country say, okay, now we have to use this as a code for us to access certain services, like you mentioned, to make payments and things like that?
Yeah. So USSD code as a channel has been part of GSM telephony. Since we actually started the journey of GSM telephony in this country. If I cast my mind back, I think we started GSM telephony around 1994 thereabout, when I think Celtel came into the country as the first telecom, and then thereafter MTN, and then other telecoms as well. So with the passage of time, we've seen a number of other mobile telephone companies coming in. But even before that, of course, we had banks. Banks were initially traditional, meaning that you would open an account, walk into the branches, have an account open, and be able to be served over the counter. But with mobile telephony, the concept of USSD being able to transact even when you're away from the branches, then emerged. So USSD is one of those channels that that come as part of what we call the core services of the network. The network has its heart or skeleton around which it's built, and that's called usually the core. We have what we call the core network, we have what we call the RAN, and then you have other services. So USSD is part of pretty much, it's a layer above the core services. I don't want to go too much deep into that, but it is part of, I would say, the framework of mobile telephony. And it's a channel that enables the customer partake of the services, like I said earlier, or it enables also, us in the telecom landscape to be able to engage customers by way of sending certain messages or sending certain alerts for them to be able to be aware of certain products and services.
I think that's quite clear. And I like that you mentioned it's not just for the teleco. Other, sectors like the banking sector, the services sector, utility companies have jumped onto this code to offer certain services. So I'll just go on to you, Andrew. You've been in the digital financial inclusion space for a while now, and FSD Uganda has been supporting initiatives in that area. So what would you say are the biggest, what is the biggest contribution that USSD or the impact USSD has had for us to enable the market achieve its mandate around promoting financial inclusion?
Thank you very much, Brenda. I think USSD has, like Alex has said, has been part of the telco journey. And we cannot actually do without it at this moment, because it's a code that actually helps us to interact directly with systems without necessarily people surrounding them. So you basically query and then you receive information, which essentially helps telcos reduce on their flow into the call centers, and also other financial providers to actually reduce on the inflow into branches, which has proven to be quite costly. So in financial inclusion, like all those who've been around in the field, you can't design a product as of today without putting into consideration the USSD. And that has several reasons as to why it is structured that way. We have infrastructure that is not well developed on the internet side of things. We have penetration of smartphones that is still quite low. So the basic phones or the feature phones are the ones that surround the masses that we want to touch. So when we design financial inclusion products, mobile money inclusive, you need for that person at the bottom of the pyramid to be able to interact with the system better. So USSD has taken us a long way to actually reach these masses. Even with its limitations, it's the one-eyed man amongst the blind at this moment. So USSD basically touches those people. It has also helped banks innovate. It has helped financial providers innovate around the USSD. Like Alex said, this was meant for telcos only, querying data, but now it looks that it has evolved into other services in the financial sector.
Yeah, I like the analogy you used of it being the one, what did you say? The one-eyed man among the blind. Yeah, so it's basically what you're trying to say is, as much as USSD may have its limitations, it's still the star that we have in the market now. So if it is still the star and the only one-eyed person amongst the blind, why do we think, or first of all, do you think it's time for us to move on from USSD? I'll pose that question to you, Alex, and then Andy will answer.
I want to answer in the affirmative. It's a definite yes. We need to move on. Why? Because right now we have a generation called the Gen Zs, born after 2000. 2000. And what is happening is that these people have been born with mobile telephone around them. And probably on a very light note, their parents dated on, mobile telephony. They are born in that sort of environment. They have grown up in that sort of environment. So by the time a kid gets to, say, primary 4, 5, they can actually manipulate a smartphone.
That's true.
And so such a population cannot be moved back to USSD. They are born when they have moved on.
When they moved on.
When they already moved on. That's their life. So that means that whereas USSD has served us and served us well, and it still continues to do so, it is going to reach a time when it will naturally die off. It will remain a tool for troubleshooting within maybe the telco or bank ecosystem, or I would say ICT ecosystem, managing the infrastructure. But when it comes to UX, interfacing with the customer, that is like a change, and we have seen it change already. One key indicator is the number of smartphones, really, the smartphone penetration in the market, which has significantly grown. The total penetration for phones in the market, I think, is about 68% right now. Out of 100 people, at least 68 people in Uganda would be expected to have a phone. That is any phone. When you look at smartphones, the statistics that we see is around 40 to 44%. But of course, it's skewed based on urban, rural. And yet a few years back, we are talking of 29, 30. To me, in about 2 years, I'm seeing a 10% growth. Now, with smartphones come multi-channels. Channels like NFC, channels like QR codes, digital payments using apps, for example. Web is also there, but traffic on web is quite weak. And embrace around web, because web is also quite a journey. But these other channels that I've just referenced are coming strong. And I see with the shifting demographics, there will be a lot of traffic shifting this way, away from USSD.
Okay. Andrew, from your experience, I know in the NGO side, we do interface with what we'd call the last served, the underserved, or the last mile people. Do you really think USSD has reached its limit? Is it time for us to move on from USSD?
Thank you, Brenda. I think inconveniencing as it may be, I think it's time to move. I'll just take you through a certain journey of, let me say, a grandmother somewhere who you are telling to press all these strings, star, then you put a number, maybe 165 star, then another number star, so this person will not be able to memorize this. So we are looking at a bright future where this person can actually just click on an app, let me say mobile money, for example. You click on the mobile money app, then you are able to see an image on that mobile money menu that is indicating money flying out of the phone. Then you know that this is the one that is saying send or withdrawing, and then it scatters money. So this person will be able to just press that. Then it will open another interface where they will press on the amount that they would like to withdraw, and then use their biometrics or facial recognition for the money to go, instead of going through the string. As of today, we cannot just switch off USSD, but we are calling on people or on different agencies, governments, donors, supporting and supplementary services to start looking into that direction, because that is where the future is. That is where the future is, that even these people at the bottom of the pyramid will have to embrace. Time back when mobile money had just come, there was a lot of resistance. How is the money going to be here? Isn't my money going to be taken? So all those concerns came up. But I think mobile money came around 2008, 2009. That is when mobile money was launched. We are looking at 10 years later, 10, 13 years later, and everyone can actually use the mobile money. So it's a question of putting things into people's palms, sensitization around these things. And the telcos do a good job in the sensitization around these new technologies. And you will see that the uptake will be there. Like Alex said, our children today, at the age of 5, 6, 7, can manipulate phones better than some of us in one way or another, because they interact with these gadgets. They know how powerful they are. They are able to then spread this. So the people in our generation and the generation before us will have to actually run after these children that can interact with these gadgets. And the penetration still, like Alex said, we see it deepening further and further around smartphones. So as we talk about the different limitations, the duty bearers of sorting out this actually need to start running after that penetration.
You raise a very interesting point around the code being very cumbersome, because sometimes you need to make a payment, but you have to go through maybe 6 different, star one, blah, 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 to get to that point, which can be a bit exhausting, so to say. But also, I just wanted to throw the spanner in the works and say, he mentioned it slightly, internet is still a problem in the country. And much as for every 100 people, 40 of those have access to smartphones. But one can also say that the people that access or have smartphones are not the financial holders. It's still an old man in the village, not his child, that has the financial power. And it's still that old man who is utilizing USSD. And we know for a fact that USSD works with all types of phones, whether you don't need internet to be able to run a USSD code. So, Andrew, if this is our agenda to promote financial inclusion, isn't that a limiting factor? For us to say, okay, let us move away from this service that does not require internet services. Doesn't it kind of limit our mandate around financial inclusion? What are your thoughts on that?
It's an egg-chick game.
Yeah.
So what comes first? Is it the internet or the migration? Yeah. So I think much as it is a limitation now, it does not stop us from moving. You will not stop yourself from buying a car because the roads are bad. We are not going to keep walking because the roads are still bad. We shall buy the cars and we shall call on government to do something about the road. So that is what we're trying to say. It does not stop us from preaching that movement because as it stands now, the blend has started coming in. We have the app, for example, the mobile money app, and we also have the USSD. So this is preparing us for that migration. For that migration. We have moved from a footpath. We are now on a potholed road. Later we shall get to good maram, and then we shall then get to a tarmacked road. So it is a journey. We are not saying that it is going to be an on and off switch. No. We are saying, let us move the steps, but let us recognize what the vision looks like. So even those people that we're talking about in the villages, the ones that are affluent in pocket, are also holding the smartphone as a signature thing in society that have actually evolved from the basic phone. They are not yet utilizing it optimally. Even on the USSD, they will still call on someone with a grandchild to do for them the USSD. So do they on the mobile app. So the duty bearers, who could be the private sector, the telecom companies, we look at government, then we look at the funders, donors, and then the people themselves will start to think, or we implore them to start thinking about how this infrastructure actually gets to the bottom of the pyramid. We've seen innovations of, they may not put expensive equipment in particular places, but they can start by hotspots where people can actually access the service. And once the traffic then is seen on these routes, then they are able to put a bigger investment in there. But it has to start somewhere. Yes, we cannot say that we are walking, so we don't need cars. How fast can you go with your feet versus how fast you can go with a car?
Okay. Yeah, I like the clarification that you've given. So we need to think forward. Yeah, for now, we still need USSD, to a certain extent, but we need to think about what other alternatives could be there. And staying on that line of thought, Alex, and I know you had briefly spoken about it in your previous submission. What could those alternatives be from the telecom side?
Thanks, Brenda. But before I get to the alternatives, I really want to buttress Andrew's point, which is, he has given us a very wide expose with practicalities right at the bottom of the pyramid. And he misses no point. I just wanted to amplify to say is that, first of all, it should not be construed that using USSD is like you're unlocked, you're out of the digital space, journey. Actually, that's this sort of the starting leg of the digital journey. So imagine if we had all Ugandans using USSD. I think from where I sit, I'll be very happy because that's the first key step. So like you've done in primary school. Because if you do primary school, then you can be sure you're going to go to secondary school. Because then you get into the habit. You create habituation to visit and be able to say, let me do USSD. Then the next thing is that, what's the other thing? Which brings us to the next key conversation. But even before I get there, Andrew has informed you about or running the call for these other players to ensure that they ready themselves. Because we need to create the environment that enables the country to digitize fully. This environment requires, for example, layers of fiber optics. It requires spectrum that is given by government. It requires other modes of connectivity like what we call E1, satellite. In fact, X, owned by Elon Musk, is coming into this country. They've already entered into Tanzania, Kenya. The moment they land here, there's going to be high-speed satellite, which means there's going to be connectivity everywhere. And they're going to create a lot of disruption around all industries that you can imagine of. and even the way we partake of these services. And so the question is that we have to be ready now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if next year they land here and they start to commercialize, all of us will be thrown off. You'll be not able to use a QR code. You can't use NFC. You want to watch a football match in Nambole. You think you should go to a service center and buy a physical ticket. Yet you can actually just buy it from within the vicinity of the stadium by just clicking on your NFC, activating your NFC, interacting with the environment there, and you pay. Yeah. So readiness has to happen now. But all that said and done, there are a number of other channels that we use and encourage our customers to use. One of them is the app. For example, at MTN Momo, we have what we call the Momo app, which is resident in App Store. Play Store, a customer is able to download it on their phone, whichever make, and put in their password, and then they'll have all their details, KYC details moved from the database in there and verified basically using a one-time password. Yeah, and they're able to weight their wallet or put cash in their wallet, their digital wallet. They can withdraw money from that wallet using the app. So app is one of them. The other channel is I talked about QR code. Yeah, especially for those that have smartphones, can simply scan a QR code. If you want to go to supermarket and pay, you can just find the pay with Momo here, for example, and other. I've seen KCB. You go there and just scan your phone. You just scan. It pops up the menu for you to input your PIN, and you pay. You don't have to go through a long list of steps to be able to query and then validate and pay. So there's a QR code. There's also what I talked about, NFC.
What's NFC in full?
NFC is near field contact communication.
Near field contact communication.
Yes, communication.
Okay.
Yeah. In South Africa, for example, right now, most of the payments are NFC. Yeah. You're in a supermarket or jewelry store, you just your phone just gets in contact with the POS, and you pay. It pops up the menu, you put in your PIN. Yeah. So there are a number of markets right here on the African continent where USSD is almost, dying out. One of them is the one that I've just cited. First of all, cash itself is nearly dead in the metropoles, in the major cities, and then also USSD is nearly done. So we see ourselves left with no option but to move this path that is pointed to the future.
And Andrew, on your side as well, what alternatives do you see? Because he's speaking from the telecom side.
Alternatives are different nodules in this on the spectrum. So for bank customers, for example, we have the Visa cards or the MasterCard cards the chips, what we would call the chips, that we interact with at ATMs, at point of sales machines in different places. So that is one of the alternatives in terms of payment. We have internet banking, both phone and web. So the website, you interact with your account and can make payments. You can even schedule payments. Let me say you have monthly bills, you can schedule those. On the phone side, there are also apps from the banks. There are apps such as marketplace apps such as Jumia, where you can actually deposit money into a Jumia wallet and you can consume off that. Safe Border, for example, you can also have money on the Safe Border wallet. When we speak about the affluent, those could be one of the things. When we go down in at the bottom of the pyramid, there is a lot more work to do in terms of the infrastructure for us now to start harnessing from these technologies. So we have those that are on the market, and like he said, we are going to get more disruptions, like several of them that we've received in the telco world, which is the major point of contact for digital, because like it or not, all these other financial service providers have, in one way or another, have layered onto a telco structure. We also have innovations that have gone a little far. I think based on the research and development, WhatsApp wants to venture into WhatsApp Pay. So that will be a major disruption when it comes to payments, because it is in people's palms. Then we have the interactive voice response, the IVR. Uncommon as it may be, it is another that can assist people at the bottom of the pyramid. You just tell them, you call 165, so that they're now telling you, press this number, press this number, press this number until you are through. There is also another innovation within the USSD that is still untapped. For example, all these menus that we are using for mobile money are in English. But there are people at the bottom of the pyramid who cannot read these languages. So and I think it could be a deliberate move by the telcos, because they know it is dying out. They don't want to invest more resources into it to get into those translations.
I'm sure Alex can neither deny nor confirm.
No confirm. He will plead the fifth on this one. So it's something that we have talked about in rooms severally, but there seems to be no movement there. However, we are seeing movement now into the alternative technologies that are actually moving people away from the USSD. And don't get surprised that the app may receive a translation before the USSD does. So that when you get onto the app, you are able to select what language you would like, at least, and then let me say Uganda, and then the menus start coming in Uganda on the app, because that manipulation is easier on the app. USSD is still stuck with us because we feel it serves the people at the bottom of the pyramid. It is cheap. It is cheap technology as compared to maintaining apps and running updates and things like that. But the apps are easily manipulatable to give you what you need than the USSD.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I just wanted to stay with you, Andrew. Who then would you think, who are those players in the market that you think will play a very critical role in us moving along on this journey?
First is government. As the apex organization that actually governs the country. So government, through its line ministries that are actually looking at the communication and the financial sector.
So ICT, basically.
Ministry of ICT. Then we come to Ministry of Finance. Those are the budget people, and they command things. They also control the financial sector. Then we look at agencies like Bank of Uganda that are regulating these spaces. We look at Uganda Communications Commission that is regulating the communication part of this. And I think they are the forefront people around USSD. That is where licenses are actually paid for USSD connection. So these would be the first line ones when we look at policymakers and regulators that then create an enabling environment. Then we look at the innovators, now the fintechs. The fintechs and telcos. Those two have now been separated. Alex here works for a fintech. Yes, Momo is the fintech, then the telco is MTN. So that is where core innovation around these happens. Then after the enabling environment has been put in place, of course there are other fintechs other than telco-linked fintechs that are innovating around these. We also have aggregators and different players. Then we come to the product people in the institutions that are utilizing USSD. If you go to a bank, they are product people, they are channel people that are looking into how to leverage existing technologies. So once the environment has been set, these also need to start thinking of creative ways of tapping into the new technologies. So call to action are first the regulators, policymakers, to create an enabling environment, and of course to also enable us to spread the rails on which internet-based applications are working.
And where would an organization like ours, where would we fall in that mix, as we try and move forward?
The biggest power that we have at FSD Uganda is the convening power. So we bring these people into the room. and start these conversations with them.
Yeah.
Through the different pillars that we have, the digital economy piece that looks at infrastructure and enabling environment, we'll be able to look into facilitating some of these on the government side. We also get into facilitating now, like under the digital financial services pillar, now looking at private sector. And of course, like you said, we're a not-for-profit organization. So then the donors also need to be looking into those same spaces so that we are able to deliver on our mandate. Then private sector, like I said, is at the core because they're the ones who need some money out of this. So I would just like to implore private sector to look in that direction and start investing in that direction.
Yeah, and I think you raise a very good point that all the players in the market, whether you're on the public or government side, whether you are in the development world or in the private sector like the telecoms or the fintechs, it's something that we have to go at together. So gentlemen, this has been a very amazing conversation. And before we basically conclude, I would like to get your parting shots.
Thank you, viewers that have dialed in and been following us all through. To me, first, I want to thank you for putting this conversation together or having this conversation to start. Why? Because from where we sit, we believe that we have milked the cow quite sufficiently thus far. To use our own local languages. So the next steps are critical for us on our technology path. And like I indicated earlier, doing USSD is the primary phase of having customers and our population enter into the digital phase. So having this conversation then raises the antenna around all the key stakeholders to be able to know what role they should play to ensure that we move along the technology path. So this is extremely critical. One thing that I should mention to you is that a customer who is completely on digital platforms gives any private player more money than a customer who is merely on USSD. Generally speaking, there's something we call average revenue per user or ARPU. In short, usually a customer who uses digital platforms has more interactive habit. They interact with the platform much more frequently. They are more confident. They trust the platform more frequently, and they end up spending a bit of their time and the resources on digital platforms. And therefore, from a viability point of view, digital natives are more profitable, would be more profitable than just basically USSD, customer base. So these conversations plays into where we would want to shift most of our customer base to be, and it's a good conversation to start from.
I like what Alex has done. He's basically made a case for the private sector that much as USSD is good, the revenue actually is with the digital, with clients that are using the digital platform. So thanks for that, Alex. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Brenda. I'll just pick it up from where Alex left it. So as Alex looked at the private sector, I'll look at the consumer. You actually derive more value while using the app or the digital channels than when you're using USSD. You are able to do a lot more when you're using the digital channels. So my call could be that as we are on this journey of financial inclusion, we are not where we were. We have made some strides, but there's still a lot more work to do. So I would like to thank Alex for, first of all, even coming to indulge in this conversation, which I think should be taking us to the next steps to the future. So we will digest the different portions of where this has worked, what has been done, and where we want to go. There will be steps to take. It's not going to be a journey of one day, but we will surely get there. And all players, because as we move into these channels, the private sector is happy, the government is happy, the customers are happy, and everyone is happy when things are moving better. So those could be my words and plea to the different players,
consumers.
to rally in,
Yeah.
and we move to the next steps.
All right. Thank you so much. And I think as you who are listening and watching out there, with this episode, I'm sure you have seen the evolution of USSD, when it started, why it started, how it has enabled the market, whether it's the private side or with the public side. We have seen the value of USSD, but now we raise a question. Is it time for us to move on from USSD as a market to explore alternatives? I hope you derived value from this conversation, and we will continue it. Like I mentioned, we have 2 series. The next one, we will basically, like Andrew said, we are going to look at case studies of alternatives that have worked in other markets and see how we can apply that to our country, Uganda. And then we'll also have another session where we will look at the broader picture. What do we need to put in place to get the ball rolling? So financial sector deepening Uganda is very key. We do write a lot of blogs, and this podcast is a child of a blog that was shared on our website. And if you want to get more details to understand where it came from, if you are keen on knowing how you can be involved in some of these conversations, please go to our website and you'll be able to look at all the knowledge outputs that we put out there that may be of value to you and your organization or the different projects that you're currently working with. And this particular podcast will be available on all our social media channels. We'll share them, whether it's our LinkedIn, we have a YouTube channel as Financial Sector Deepening Uganda, so you can always follow the conversation there. Thank you so much, and we look forward to the next episode to promote and continue the conversation around the relevance of USSD code.